Good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Thank you once again. Thank you all of you for joining us this evening at our second plant-based vegan meetup. Our first one was in November. We had about 100 people. I think we're gonna get to close to 300 people this evening. There's some folks downstairs too in the community room, so good evening to the folks downstairs as well. Our next one is in 3 months, in May, and I think with every passing event that we have, we'll just have more people attending and wanting to learn about plant-based nutrition, about what we're doing in Brooklyn, about some of the folks are doing in here in New York City, and also what you at home are doing. Some people I know here are plant-based and are vegan, but I know there are others that want to learn more about how they can get started, so you're in the right place. Before we start, by the way, I'm standing in front of the podium because I've seen a few of these playbacks and I realized I'm not tall enough to be behind the podium, so it just works if I'm in the front. So after we hear from our wonderful panelists, we have a expo downstairs, and I just want to give a big shout out to the businesses that are downstairs. Brooklyn Rub, Burger Your Way, Califia Farms, Chef Don, Dank Bread Brooklyn, Gingy Juice, Grab 'em Snacks, Grandma's Secrets, Local Roots NYC, Love More Juice, Plant-Based For You, Sophia and Grace Cookies, Soul Sips, Spread Love, and That Mac and Cheese, and the Uptown Vegan. So we have a lot of vendors downstairs. We have a lot of delicious foods that you can eat. We're gonna hear from our panelists, and we're gonna have them Q&A, but also this is an opportunity for you to network amongst each other, get to know who you are, and if you're not signed up to our newsletter, make sure you sign up. It's brooklyn-usa.org. It's how to get the best way to get all the information about the events that we're doing. So now I'd like to turn it over to our wonderful borough president, who through his own journey of being diagnosed with diabetes, has inspired many of us here at Borough Hall and throughout Brooklyn to really look at plant-based nutrition and the health benefits of it and how it really is life-changing. I myself have now been plant-based for about 5 months. It's a fantastic journey, thank you. It's been a fantastic journey, and what it's really made me do is just appreciate food more. I know it sounds weird because I'm not eating meat and I'm not eating dairy, but I really do appreciate nutrition in food now, creativity with food, tasting and enjoying food, and how my body feels now that I'm feeding it properly. And I think that's what we're trying to do. We're just trying to get Brooklyn healthier. We're just trying to get New York City healthier, even if it means you just cut out cheese from your diet or meat, or you take small steps. But everybody wants to be healthy. I'm not gonna say anymore. I'm gonna zip it. So I'd like to introduce Borough President Eric Adams.
Thank you, Natalia, who's just doing an amazing job here, here at Borough Hall. I ask this question all the time. How many of you are in Borough Hall for the first time? Lovely, 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 like that. You know, we really, and use this space. This is your space, this is not my space. Use this space for events, to host things. This is a beautiful building, and it can't just be this structure that sits, you know, Geraldine Street that you walk by. I want it to be a place that, you know, you empower yourselves, and, you know, we do the things to raise healthy children and families. So this is a beautiful space. Walk around, see the space, and come up with some ideas. We want to use it as often. You come here during the week, you find that there are things going on in the courtroom, in the community room, down in the rotunda, in my conference room. Every space is used here. This is your building. This is the people's house. This is not like Trump in the White House. This belongs to the people, you know. Second thing is, as Natalia said, we want to hear from you. What else can we do at the plant-based meetups that you know, would like us to do? Natalia gets a lot of feedback, and we want to cater it to fulfill some of the things that you want accomplished. And we also want this to be a learning experience. You know, every day I'm learning something new about this amazing journey of plant-based eating and just eating right. It is an amazing, amazing journey, and we want you to just be open. Don't allow yourselves to be closed to the possibility. I think of Harriet Tubman. I was telling someone earlier, Harriet Tubman, someone praised her on how many slaves she freed. And she said, I would have freed more if they only realized they were enslaved. And we can heal a lot of people if they only know that the food we eat is addictive and we are enslaved to that food. You know, it has taken over our lives and destroyed our families and our bodies. And the goal is to free as many people as possible. I think Sister Daughtry is here. Is she here, Sister Daughtry? Sister Daughtry is here from the House of the Lord's Church. I spoke there at the church a couple of months ago. And now they are starting an amazing program with their healing ministry where they're going to be taking a group of women together and go through the initiative of plant-based together as they start to turn around their lives. It's an amazing initiative that we're asking everyone to do these small support groups. As Dr. McMacken will tell you, this support group is amazing because if you decide to eat right, you know, for a perfect example, the day my mother found out she no longer had to use insulin, someone gave her a box of cookies. Think about that. And I said, Mommy, you know, imagine me being addicted to drugs, going through therapy, coming out of the drug treatment, and the day I come out, someone hand me a bag of heroin. That's what someone did to you. And you'll be surprised as you sit down and tell people, you know, I want to eat healthy now. They get so angry. And they want to put things in front of you and say, just take one bite of this. You know, what's wrong with you? You think you're special? It's amazing how angry people get. That you say, listen, I want to be healthy. I want to stop injecting myself. I want to stop taking these pills. It's amazing. It is because they see in you what they know they should see in themselves. And so, 3 TED Talks I would love for you to see. How many of you have heard of TED Talks? TED Talks are amazing. 3 TED Talks I want you to see. Dr. Danaeff is here. He has been treating my mother. He's going to talk about some of the things. You know, Mommy, 2 months. 2 months plant-based. She called me excited after speaking to the doctor. Her sugar was going so low that the doctor said, man, she gotta stop taking that insulin. You know? And Mommy's off insulin. You know, off insulin. And it's an adjustment. You know, it's an adjustment. It's really realizing you don't have this medicine, you know. You need it until you don't need it. It is to stabilize. It's not to be lifetime. And so we're going to continue to work with her as she continues to make these adjustments as she moves forward at 79, at 80. She's going to be in a good place. So 3 TED Talks that you should look at. The first one is microbiome. Microbiome. Thank you, Stephanie, my communication director. It's by Warren Peters. The second is gut flora. Gut flora. It's by Jeroen, Jeroen. And his last name is Reyes, R-A-E-S. And the third is Feed Your Microbiomes by John, and I'm going to spell his last name, C-R-Y-A-N. Okay, and just quickly, then I'm going to turn it over to those other guys, because this is so important. You got them all? Okay, let me do it this way. Let me do it this way, okay? Here's my cell number, 917-335-3179. My staff always gets upset that I give out my cell number, but you know what? It is what it is. You're right. 917-335-3179. Text me and just say TED Talk, and I will send you these 3 TED Talks, okay? Okay, so our bodies are made up of cells, all right? Trillions of cells. 10% of those cells are our actual DNA. 90% are these microbiomes, okay? So we're more microbiomes than we are ourselves. When our babies are born and go through a mother's birth canal, they are indoctrinated with these microbiomes. And it gives them the protection. They are the, what we consider to be these bugs, but they're really protectors for you. They're in your body, they're in your stomach, your gut. They're all over your body. That's why it's important for you to see this. When you do a cesarean and take a baby out of a mother's stomach, that you are not giving them the microbiomes. 1/3 of the babies that are born in America are born through cesarean. Not because the mother's or baby life is in danger, but in many cases the doctors just don't want to wait until the baby goes through, the mother goes through a labor. So they have connected that many, from asthma to obesity and all these other diseases, many of the other diseases are connected to the fact that many of our children are not being indoctrinated and coded with these microbiomes that our baby needs at birth. Not only that, antibiotics kills and destroy your microbiomes. The #1 place where antibiotics come from is the 70% of the antibiotics that are in America and used in America, they come from what we give to chickens, cows, and other meat to make them larger so they can go to the market faster. So when we eat that hamburger, we eat that steak, we eat that egg, not only is it bad for us because of its makeup, but it's bad for us because it's also killing your microbiomes, and you need those microbiomes to have a healthy life. Because the majority of what we're made of, as creepy as it sounds, are those microbiomes. We're actually the foreigners in our body with the 10% of DNA. We're 90% microbiomes. And scientists have really started discovering this and the impact of microbiomes and how the foods you eat, processed food, kills them. And many of the diseases that we get is because of this. Is totally new science. And when you look at these TED Talks, you're going to see the impact and the connection. So many times plant-based eaters were seeing these good results, and we didn't even realize why they were getting these good results, and now they're finally discovering how this food impacts the quality of your health every day. So we want you to be smarter and wiser as we pursue this healthy lifestyle that we are trying to accomplish. And that's why we have these knowledgeable people coming here and talking about these things and having you speak with each other. Right here is a support group. Find 4 or 5 people that you can do this journey together. And say, how do we do this together? How do we sit down and talk about exchange recipes and exchange ideas, cooking ideas that we can do together? That's the goal. Coming together to solve these problems together and live a healthy lifestyle. And that's the commitment to do so in the process. So we're going to continue this every 3 months. We're going to be back here. This is your ET moment. You are not alone. We're all in this together. And once we share this space together, we'll share a healthy lifestyle together. So I'm going to turn it over, Italia, back to Italia. We have some great panelists that are here, and we want to continue to do some great things together. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Borough President Eric Adams. So let's get to our panel. First up, a new friend to Borough Hall, Jonathan Setnarski. He's the president and CEO of the Natural Gourmet Institute. It's a cooking school in Manhattan. The Borough President and I had the pleasure of touring, where they focus on healthy foods and healthy preparations. And it's a really dynamic place. I'm going to let Jonathan take it from here. But Jonathan, can you talk a little bit about the diverse food options that are available for people who are not eating meat and dairy? Because it's kind of scary when you first think about, well, what am I going to eat? I think that's the first question that people ask. And this is your field, this is your line of work, so I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and it's really great to be here. It's actually wonderful to see that kind of plants are in, right? And there's a lot of curiosity about it. And just the school as a little background, because it weaves into the question Italia asked, is that the culinary school that I look after is 40 years old. And we were talking about food as medicine and natural foods and the importance of minimizing overly processed and highly refined ingredients for a long time. And we like to make a joke that we were kale and quinoa before anyone even knew what it was, right? So, and our chefs, and so people who typically come to the school are chefs who are focused on plant-based cuisine. They are food enthusiasts. They're individuals who've had a profound experience with food and healing. And they're people who really can't understand maybe what's going on with them and what are the things that I can do to actually improve myself and my well-being without having to take constant visits to the doctor or look otherwise. So we talk a lot about what's going on with the individual, and it's great to hear the microbiome conversation because we're one of the only schools that I know of that when we're teaching people how to become chefs, we're actually introducing a whole module on the microbiome and the importance of understanding about what kind of goodness you do to your gut. And when you feed your gut well, you actually feed your overall well-being, and you feed kind of who you are as an individual. You feel better, you look better, and as a result, you can actually, take care of illnesses either before they even start or begin to help treat them as you're going through them. But to answer your kind of question around what's going on, I mean, it's just incredible what's happening with the idea of eating more plants, right? And so it used to be in the old days, people thought about, oh, those plant eaters, they gotta be hippies, they are a little weird, and what are they doing? And I want a hamburger, and I want fries, and I want a milkshake, and isn't that all wonderful? And what we talk about is the fact that plants actually can be the star, right? So they don't need to be converted into something else. And if you take a plate and make it full of rich and kind of vibrant vegetables and grains, and you think about kind of, again, staying away from overly processed and refined, but if you can prepare things at home that are simple and delicious, or have an awareness of all sorts of food delivery options and restaurant options that now make these available, you can find that it's quite easy to make a change from kind of what we would consider traditional or conventional eating habits. So I'm a former meat eater, and I liked my burgers, and I liked my fries, and I liked my Diet Coke, and I liked all those different things in my life. And when I kind of migrated to kind of the philosophy of the school and certainly began to embrace a more plant-based kind of diet, I found that things cured right away. So, I used to suffer from terrible inflammation. So I had almost like, my family has a lot of arthritis and aches and pains, and I would pop Advil every single day. And when I began to think about the foods that were less inflammatory and really started making those changes, I don't take Advil anymore. And it's really easy. So when you're thinking about what's available, sometimes it's easy just to start in your supermarket. And even here in New York City, there's sometimes things called food deserts, right? So you can go into a supermarket and you may not find an abundance of greens available, but look for them. There's farmer markets everywhere. You can, if you stay around, the old trick of the trade was, if you stay around the outer edges of a supermarket, you stay away from those heavily processed and refined ingredients, and you can find more good things to put on your plate. And it's very easy to start creating things that taste delicious and look wonderful. We were talking before with someone, and I was talking about how you can roast spaghetti squash, scoop it out, it looks like spaghetti, and you can take crushed tomatoes and some red bell pepper, some Spanish onion, put a lot of spices, lots of garlic, cover the spaghetti squash like that, like you're doing a marinara, and maybe put some Bragg's nutritional yeast on top of it. It tastes like Parmesan cheese a little bit, and voila, you have this delicious meal that's so satisfying and so easily available for you, and you don't even realize that you're missing maybe a plate of pasta that has a meat sauce or something in it. So lots of things are available at Italia. And I probably went over my 3 minutes.
Okay. And I encourage everyone's contact information that's on the panel is on your program, but I encourage you to visit his website. It's a beautiful website, and the school offers different courses. I know there's some certificate programs, and there's some certification programs, so I encourage everyone to visit that. And then you were talking about, I guess, the side effects of going plant-based, and I'll share something that's a little maybe too personal, but I'll still share it anyways. I mean, the BP did share his cell number. But so after going plant-based, the very first thing that I noticed is my morning breath disappeared. Sometimes, you'd wake up and you have that really funky morning breath, completely gone when I wake up, and I kid you not, when I wake up, I feel like I already brushed my teeth. I just don't have that minty taste in my mouth. So it works. So now I want to talk to Dr. David Dunayev. Dr. David Dunayev has a practice here in Brooklyn, I believe a practice out in Long Island as well. He's an internist, right, specializing in plant-based nutrition. And I'm going to let him speak about some of the health outcomes that he's seen and some of the people that he's worked with.
I'm overwhelmed. I'm already overwhelmed, and I haven't started speaking. But I want to compliment Jonathan on what he said, because using plants is very powerful, and I think that's just amazing. And what I wanted to talk about is I've had a lot of success with patients, and I've had a lot of success in cardiovascular disease, diabetes, hypertension, cholesterol, asthma, all the obesity, all the large diseases, osteoarthritis, and it's been wonderful. But we have to, as a community with plant-based, stick together. And it's very important, because when you ask a patient to change, there's something called fear. And fear comes over all of us. With change comes fear. And we shouldn't fear the change, but we do. And so what happens is you put somebody on a plant-based diet. And I'll give you an example. You put somebody on a plant-based diet, and I put Eric's mother on a plant-based diet. You don't mind if I use this example?
No, not at all.
Okay. So I didn't ask him beforehand. I should have. We put Eric's mother on a plant-based diet. She did beautifully. And Eric's calling me and saying, does she need to be off the insulin because her sugars are really way down? And I said, of course, she needs to cut the insulin and cut the insulin more. And in 2 months, she's off the insulin and she's doing really well. And then month 3 comes, and she gets a gout attack. Has anyone ever had a gout attack? Does anyone know what that's like? Okay, well, a gout attack or kidney stones or anything like that, a gout attack is a really painful arthritis inflammation. And it's really, really excruciating when it happens. And all you want to do is reduce that pain. So what was her reaction? I gave her medication to help her with that. I gave her steroids, and it helped her right away. And then she got another gout attack. And her reaction was she went to her physician, and I don't know why she went to her physician, and he gave her a list of foods not to eat. And the foods not to eat were mostly green leafy vegetables and beans. And why is that the case? Because they have purines. And supposedly purines increase the risk of gout. But the research doesn't actually show that dark green leafy vegetables and beans and stuff like that actually increase the risk of gout, but that meats and animal protein are great at increasing the risk of gout. And so she was ready to give up on the plant-based diet, even though she was off all of her diabetes meds and she felt great. She was ready to give up because of the fear and the confusion that comes about with this situation. And so what I want to say is what it ended up being was it ended up being a diuretic or a water pill. And so when we took her off that water pill, she no longer had gout and she felt great, but it was the medication. And so the patient gets confused and the medical community gets confused because half the medical community doesn't even know what a plant necessarily is. So we all have to point, when we go to our doctor, bring them a plant and an apple and tell them this is a green and this is a fruit and it's okay to eat both. Because sometimes people get afraid, and we shouldn't be afraid, and we need a united community in order to not have this problem. And even when people are successful, they are sometimes afraid and willing to stop, and they shouldn't stop just because of these scenarios, and we should figure out what it is. And this happens with other problems, with kidney stones, with diarrhea, with other problems, and they want to blame it on the unknown. And what we need to do is plants are powerful. And as Jonathan pointed out, his arthritis went away. And as many people will notice, their pain goes away and you have so much energy, you need to emphasize that plants only have positive side effects. And that's what I've seen And that's what I just wanted to say.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Denaeff. And like I said, thank you. His contact information is in your program. Next, I want to turn over to Jeray Holland. Jeray has been working with me to get our vegan businesses and vendors together, and she's been really fantastic. I said, you know, Jeray, the borough president, is putting this event together, and she said, I have a list of people that who really want to be at Borough Hall, really want to get the information out there. So, Jeray, I just wanted you to talk a little bit about why you're doing this and some of the things you do with your group, with Spread Love.
Thank you. Again, my name is Jeray Holland. I'm the owner of Spread Love BK. One of the things that I do, it's an umbrella of things that we actually do, but one of my hearts, because I am vegan, I have been vegan for almost 2 years now, is I host a network of different businesses that have vegan products, holistic products, makeup, and what I do is I scout out different places that actually have pop-ups or different events where they can come display their businesses. It supplies a great platform for them to get their businesses out there and get their products out there, because a lot of people do not know that it is these outlets of different businesses around Brooklyn and around the city.
Thank you, Jeray. And Jeray will be downstairs floating around with the businesses, and thank you so much. Really, you've been a fantastic partner to Borough Hall.
Thank you.
Before
you guys cut me off, if anybody, if they could just look in the back of their flyer, we have all the businesses listed there. If you could just follow or look at their emails throughout the night or when you go home, that's one of the things that I definitely like to do is patronize different businesses. So we just want everybody to actually do the same. So that's how we get the growth of these businesses around Brooklyn, so they can have their storefront or their business out there also.
Thank you, Jeray. Thank you. Before we continue the panel, I want to recognize some people who are in the audience. Our friend Rachel Atchison from the mayor's office, who is a huge plant-based vegan and animal rights advocate, who has been another fantastic friend to Borough Hall. So Rachel, thank you so much for coming out this evening. And in the back, we have Dr. Michelle McMacken, another fantastic plant-based doctor. She's over at Bellevue doing some fantastic and phenomenal things to help advance our health. So Cynthia King is from the Coalition for Healthy School Food. They are doing some phenomenal work in making sure that our schools, our children are being fed nutritious foods. They've worked with, I believe, 3 schools now in Brooklyn to get them to be vegetarian. They were also part of the whole Meatless Mondays, with 15 schools rolling out in Brooklyn soon. Cynthia, what you guys do is amazing work. I'm going to turn the mic over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Hello, everybody. Nice to see you all. I'm on the board of directors of the Coalition for Healthy School Food, and like Italia said, we are helping schools to transition their menus from meat-laden menus to the alternative menu. And I'm very happy to be working with the borough president, who is helping us to explain to schools that this is an option that is available to them. Many of the schools do not know that. And what we do is we go in and we support, we help to educate the whole school, the students, the parents, the teachers, the food service personnel, the staff, and we are working hard to let people understand the impact of the food industry on nutrition recommendations. And it's very important work, and we are letting people know the truth about the importance and the impact of a plant-based diet. The health problems that people experience today, including our young people, could be largely eliminated by switching to a healthy plant-based diet. I work with children. I teach hundreds of children a week, and childhood obesity is an enormous problem. And you know, I have a dance studio in Flatbush, Brooklyn, and we don't allow anything but plant-based snacks in the school. And it's so enlightening and encouraging to see the children bringing in, figuring out different things to bring in for snacks. And there's a wide variety of things that they've come up with, and they all feel excited about it, and I'm really proud of that. We like to educate the whole community. so that they can understand that we are largely in control of our own health destiny. And the Coalition for Healthy School Food, you can find us at healthyschoolfood.org. If you have a student or if you're involved in a school, you can let us know and we can help come in and help the school to transition their menu. And you know, I've had doctors say to me, you know, they take your family history and they'll say, well, this is something that runs in your family, without ever acknowledging that it's the way that people eat that runs in their family. Mm-hmm. And I haven't eaten meat in over 50 years, and I don't have the diseases that they said were running in my family. So I'm so encouraged to see you all here, and there's wonderful, delicious food downstairs to taste. And I always tell people, my friends and colleagues, nothing tastes as good as healthy feels. And I just, you know, I encourage everybody to just take that first step and try it. And I have cards. Feel free to talk with me after the panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Cynthia.
I think that what you said is so important, and you know my saying, it's not your DNA, it's your dinner. It's not your lineage, it's your lunch. It's not where you're born, it's your breakfast. Because mommy thought that. She's diabetic, my sister's diabetic, my brother's pre-diabetic, my other sister's diabetic, and we all sat down together over the Christmas break, and we saw Forks Over Knives and What the Health, and just really making the connection. And so don't let anyone believe because your family had a particular ailment that it runs in your family. No, it does not. You know, the fried chicken runs in your family. The chitlins runs in your family. The pasta runs in your family. It is not in your lineage. You may have the gene for an ailment, but you turn that gene on based on your lifestyle. It doesn't have to be. So it's very important. I'm so glad you raised that we can break the cycle. It's not where you were born. It is what we are eating.
Thank you. And you know, we're talking about children. I have a 3.5-year-old, and I cook with him all the time. He's in the kitchen with me. I give him a little butter knife. He can cut anything that's soft. I have him engaged in the food that he's eating. He loves broccoli. He loves, like we call them, magic beans. So it's important if you have children to make sure that they're engaged and they're participating in their own health. So next, I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Nadia Pinavilla. Yeah. She has a business called Euphoebe. She's ventured into plant-based nutrition. I'm not going to talk about your story because I'll let you speak about that. But what were some motivating factors for you to get into this field, into this line of work?
Thank you, Italia, and thank you so much for having me here tonight. It's a pleasure to be here. So many of us here have an experience, a catalytic moment that brought us into this plant-based world. And mine starts off with a bit of a depressing story, I'm afraid. My father died when I was 10. He was 45. My mother died of breast cancer when she was 60. My sister has breast cancer. I'm BRCA2. And the kernel behind the company that I set up was set about 3 years ago when my mother-in-law, whom I love dearly, was diagnosed with kidney cancer. And at that point, not coming from a food and nutrition background, though always being mindful of what I ate, I started to read about food and nutrition, looking for the silver bullet, looking for an alternative rather than just let's hope that the chemo works. And my pivotal book was a book written by Dr. Servan Schreiber, The Anti-Cancer Diet, where I learned that today's modern diet of highly refined grains, stripped of natural fiber, loaded with added sugar, and the highly processed diet that we're eating of processed meats was actually making us sick, driving cancer, driving insulin growth factors, fueling cancer cell growth, and weakening our immune system over this course of this journey to actually allow cancer cells to proliferate. That was on the personal side. In the meanwhile, I'm Italian. My children at the time were 2 and 4, and all I heard from them, I was relatively new to this country, and I heard, "Mummy, I want chicken nuggets and hot dogs and the Trader Joe's probiotic smoothie that contained 8 teaspoons of sugar in it," and I thought I was going insane. And then on the professional side, I'd been called in to look on reinvigorating a brand that was a meal replacement brand, one of these shakes, you know, a meal, 200 calories. And my background is one of science. I have a geeky PhD in quantum chemistry. And so whereas my partners were concentrating on consumer engagement, I started to look into the science. And there, at the same time, I learned about sugar, I learned about the addiction that we had to sugar, and I learned the big untruth, which is eat less, move more, is doomed for failure, as we repeatedly see that it is, if what we're eating is actually driving a dependency in a sugar and is giving rise to what we've called the crappy food cycle, excuse the profanity, which is eat, crash, I'm kind of sluggish, I'm hungry, I want to eat more. That 2-hour cycle that we're on, this merry-go-round. And the solution is not to eat less, but it's actually to switch what we eat and to eat more plants, to eat more fiber and nutrients. And so I spent the rest of 2014 reading every single New York Times bestseller there was under the sun, the China study, Dr. Lustig's fat charts, Joel Fuhrman's Eat to Live. And I learned that the solution was to eat more beans and greens, our mum's right, but I also recognize that it is hard. And it's hard because it can be overwhelming. We were talking about fear earlier. It can be overwhelming to change how we, particularly if we are dependent on sugar and refined grain and these highly palatable foods like dairy and processed meat that drive our hunger. And that was the idea behind you, Phoebe. How do we make it easier to bring people into a fully immersive diet? So where we're doing the heavy lifting in the kitchen, making those whole food, plant-based meals really tasty, lunches and dinners, but combining that with a coaching program of education and motivation and support to hold people's hand during this 28-day journey of fully immersive experience, because when you come out at the other end, you do feel better and you do feel different. And we are now working with physicians, cardiologists, endocrinologists, internists, where we're being treated as a prescription, where within 28 days we're reversing prediabetes, we're dropping cholesterol by 80 points, 40 points in LDL. We're taking people off statins. We're taking people off insulin and their diabetic medication within 3 months. We're taking people off blood pressure medication. And the side effect of that being, and I happen to lose like 10 or 20 pounds in the process and look and feel so much better. That seems to be a far better side effect than taking medication. So that's what we did. And I actually took a course at the Natural Gourmet Institute in culinary nutrition, which is where we found all our chefs, and we hired a bunch of ex-NGI chefs who are amazing, and they're doing our heavy lifting in the kitchen in Brooklyn.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So last but most certainly not least, we have Dr. Richard Rosenfeld. He is the president of the medical and dental staff at SUNY Downstate Medical Center. And I think it's important that we have members of our medical system as part of this conversation. A lot of times, people listen to their doctors, and when their doctors tell them they should do this or do that or not eat their vegetables, we listen. But the conversation within the medical community about looking at plant-based nutrition really needs to start within their own ranks, which is why we're delighted that you're here this evening. So if you could talk a little bit about what you do and some of your personal experience with plant-based nutrition in Brooklyn and SUNY Downstate. I'll turn this over to you.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. And, so I've been practicing medicine a little over 35 years, 27 in Brooklyn. Who loves Brooklyn? All right. BP is not here, but he heard you, I have no doubt. And despite that, probably only recently really discovered what makes you healthy. And you might guess that it has something to do with the signs you're seeing here and what people said. I've always been active with health. I have a public health degree. I've argued nationally for reduced use of antibiotics, for reduced use of medications, for natural history, and I think I've made some impact, but I think the real impact is what we're talking about today. So, for me, it began about 2-3 years ago, and I looked in the mirror and said, am I conducting my life in a way that I'm actually going to be around a long time? Am I taking care of myself? Am I going to see my grandkids? Will I have grandkids? Will I have great-grandkids, And I don't know how many of you do this daily, but if you look in the mirror, it's an interesting thing to ask yourself, and the answer was clearly no. I was about 20 pounds heavier than college, 30 pounds heavier than high school, and about this time, my youngest son came home from college, first year at college, where, who knows what they figure out. But his big epiphany, and this was at the December holiday break, was he was going to be a vegan. Now we looked, he said, don't worry, Mom and Dad, it's only for a couple of months. Well, 3 years later, I'm a vegan, my 3 kids are vegans, and my wife is reluctantly going in that direction. We'll see. You got to have one carnivore in the family. And what's happened? So for me, I've lost 35 pounds. I'm below my high school weight. I actually go to the store, to the Gap, and get slim jeans. This is a very scary concept. And they're always on sale because nobody else fits into them. So it's really good. I have more energy than I ever had. I get sick hardly ever. I feel great. It's just, the benefits are incredible. So what did I do to get these benefits? Well, it was simple. Go to whole food plant-based. So not just plant-based, but whole foods plant-based. And I think equally important is a low-fat whole foods plant-based. You can be plant-based and eat a lot of garbage and get really fat eating all that good plant-based sugar and, sweets and oil and nuts and stuff. You got to be careful. So low-fat whole food plant-based. I run 25 miles a week. Not easy. And I work out 4 times a week with weights. If any of you want to join me, I typically get up about 3:15 to 3:45 every day of the week, and I sleep late to 5. Someone in the back, I got company, hallelujah. 5 o'clock on weekends, that's my late day. If I don't do it in the morning, it doesn't happen. And as a result of doing that, I feel great. My son at the time, when he went vegan, had just read the China study. It was mentioned, a great study, shows you, pretty incontrovertibly why eating lots of animal products leads to lots of cancer, lots of chronic diseases, and if you stop, it reverses. And right after that, he read the classic, How Not to Die. Who's read How Not to Die? Bunch of people. If you haven't read it, you must get it. It's the #1 book on Amazon in health, fitness, diet. And what's interesting about this book, Michael Greger, 2015, the first half of it tells you why you should be whole food plant-based, and the second half focuses on the foods. And if I love reading those reviews on Amazon, right? The 3 stars, 4 stars, 5 stars. It's great. I mean, that's what it's all about. You could spend days doing this. If you read the reviews on this book, it's like no other. It's case after case after case of someone saying how they had diabetes, how they had arthritis, how they had heart disease, how they had heart attacks, how they had this cancer, this, that, and the other thing, and then they did this and they're better. In medicine, we call that anecdote, but if you have enough of it, it's no longer anecdote. And we don't have a lot of randomized controlled trials to say that if you go whole foods plant-based, your life's going to be better. But I think the evidence is overwhelming at this point. And there's a saying, it goes by a fellow, William Osler, that common sense is rare in medicine and usually exists in inverse ratio to the degree of education. So the more subspecialized, highly trained, brilliant the person is, the less common sense they have. And they will never admit that eating right is better for you than all the, as we say in Brooklyn, mishigas is than what they do. All right? So you got to have some common sense. So I think you can all do it. And I would encourage you, whole food, plant-based. But not that. You need some exercise, too. You need a little cardio, a little fitness in there. And then you got to get the right habits. Smoking, no smoking, please. Drinking in moderation. Stay away from that hyper-palatable, over-processed, salty, delicious garbage that you can get all over the place, It takes some effort, but I think it's worth it, and look forward to discussing it more with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Big round of applause for our panelists this evening. We're going to take a few questions from the audience, questions or comments. And if we don't get to you, because I know everyone loves to give feedback, please email us. Our email is on the program. Ask Eric at brooklynbp.nyc.gov. We answer all the emails. I mean, the BP gets CC'd on them. If we don't, staff will return your emails. The borough president reads a lot of them too, so it's important that we get feedback. So Anthony, I have a young lady over here in orange who's raised her hand first. She must be very eager.
How do you prevent gas?
What was that question?
How do you prevent gas?
Is anyone, Dunayev?
I'll be daring enough to take that question. Well, there's two parts to it. How do you prevent gas and how do you prevent swamp gas? Because swamp gas is what's really the problem. Gas is normal. And in medicine, what we do is when you have surgery, you always say, did the patient pass gas? Because that means their GI function is working and their gut is working. So gas isn't the problem, it's swamp gas. And what I mean by that is sometimes there's a nice odor to it. And what you can do to do that is a couple of things. One is when you start a whole foods plant-based diet, it's a lot of fiber. And your microbiome, which Eric had mentioned, gets overwhelmed. And sometimes it takes getting used to. And so if you start it gradually, then it starts to go down and you get used to it. But in the first week or two of starting a whole foods plant-based diet, you can get a tremendous amount of gas and then it starts to dissipate. And in fact, my wife, or my sister-in-law said to my wife, we were going on a trip, and she said, you're going to sit in the car with him for 5 hours after he's had a can of beans? And she said, yeah, but he's used to the amount of fiber, so his gut gets used to it. So if you slowly introduce it, and you eat foods that are not necessarily raw first and maybe they're cooked, they'll be more mild to your system. And the other thing is, there are probiotics that are valuable for helping to get rid of the swamp part of the gas. Not necessarily the gas, but the swamp part of the gas. And that's what I would suggest.
Thank you, Dr. Dunayev. Over here in the front, the stunning, sharply dressed man over here, Kelvin.
You're very kind,
yes.
Thank you. I've been plant-based for about 5 months now.
Congratulations.
And, but it's a little confusing because there are no restaurants that you can find. And a lot of the, well, that's what I do. If you have a list of restaurants, that's the question. I would love to get a list of restaurants. And secondly, a lot of the large supermarkets that have these vegan products, a lot of them are filled with a lot of sodium and things of that nature. So I'm wondering, how do you get around those things? Thank you.
Does anyone like to take that, Jonathan?
Yeah, I mean, there are, and I can certainly give to the BP a list of restaurants that are around, because our alum from our school have opened a bunch of restaurants, certainly across the city, that are vegetarian and plant-based. And they're available to a lot of people. There's a bunch in Brooklyn. In Williamsburg, there's something called Modern Love, is one that comes at the top of mind, which is a great plant-based place, delicious food. In terms of accessing, I think someone brought it up, and I know it's come up in a meetup before, but you know, you can be plant-based and vegan, and you can be healthy, or you can be unhealthy, right? And just because something's vegan doesn't mean that it's healthy, because if you ingest, say, a vegan cupcake, it's still a cupcake, right? And the time you break down the ingredients of what goes into it, cashew cream and coconut oil and the like, super caloric, super fattening, and anything in excess is not good for anything. So one of the things is you're looking for, I mean, the best is, and we've heard the words mentioned twice, but we have 7 simple principles at the school. And the first is that food should be whole. So if you are trying to be plant-based and kind of really think about a plant-based diet, eat the way nature intended. Like your grandmother used to say, an apple a day keeps the doctor away. No offense to the doctors in the crowd, right? But that matters. So if you eat a coconut in all of its natural form, you're getting the fiber, you're getting the nutrients, you're getting the right levels of sugar, etc. So look for things in their whole and natural form. I mean, look for things that are seasonal. So when you are shopping in supermarket, look for what's in season. It matters as well. I mean, a strawberry you can get all year round now, which is fabulous, right? But if you ever watch on YouTube for fun, look at the journey of a strawberry, and if it comes from far away, by the time it ends up in your refrigerator, it's lost a significant amount of its nutrient benefits. So try to eat seasonally and try to eat fresh and organic. Well, what does that mean? It really just makes sure, like, read the ingredients. If there's words on the box that you don't understand, or if sugar and salt are the first 2 or 3 ingredients, because it goes in order of amount of ingredient in the box or container, maybe pass it for something natural, or make your own. Make some kale chips, or make some flaxseed crackers, etc. Follow tradition. I mean, a lot of things, I think the BP said, which is great, is that, you're not your dinner, or it's not in your family, it's kind of what your family ate, but also think about where you're from, because what you eat in terms of indigenous to the geographic location you are from, actually they're starting to prove that what's in the soil biodiversity translates into your microbiodiversity, which actually translates into good health and well-being. And look at communities. So reach out to the communities and look what's in your community and eat from there. So really, just to answer the question, is that we'll get a list of restaurants that you might be able to try. Spend some time in the kitchen, because if you can, it's easy to make your own kale chips or apple chips or kind of different crackers. You know what's in there, and you can control it better. Or when you look for ingredients, just pay really close attention to what's on the box. And if there's more than 3 or 4 ingredients, and if there's words that you can't pronounce, it's best to stay away from it.
Thank you, Jonathan.
And I just want to add to that, because when you're hungry, you eat. That's why I went down and got my bowl. Do it yourself. Let me tell you something. These restaurants, I go to a restaurant, I say, listen, don't put no oil in my food, don't put any salt in my food, don't put any sugar in my food. They come back, I do the Eric test where I touch it and I rub it. I say, there's oil in here. I just put a little. Do it yourself. 90% of what I eat, I cook myself. And I stick to a ritual. I don't make it complicated. I know what I'm eating every day for breakfast, every day for lunch, every day for dinner. I know I lay it out. Some days I'll do something different. But don't kid yourself. Your American diet is not as diverse as you think it is. On Monday, you're eating fried chicken. On Tuesday, you're eating meatloaf. On Thursday, you're eating it. Trust me, you only have about 13 items in your dinner. Some people say to me, well, you eat that every morning for breakfast, your big bowl of fruit with flaxseed and others. I say, yeah, and you eat 2 eggs on a roll with butter every morning. That every morning. Who are you kidding? So, find some simple meals. The Forks Over Knives book meal plan is the best. If you haven't, how many of you have read that? Okay. Forks Over Knives meal plan. Everyone who texts me, I'm going to send you a text with a list of things that is very informative to start out. The Forks Over Knives meal plan, each week, it tells you how to change your breakfast, your lunch, then your dinner. It tells you what items in the store are good, what to purchase. Dr. Esselstyn's book on how to prevent and reverse heart disease is excellent. It gives you a whole list. It gives you recipes that you can try and some very real food, real tasting. It's going to take a week for those of you who are going to try this. It's going to take a week to readjust your taste buds, because they have been over inundated. We're like addicts. We have had so much sugar and salt and all these other things that it kills your taste bud. Once you wean off, you're going to find that you're going to enjoy the taste of food and real food. Like this, what I'm eating now is, Dr. Denev turned me on to these noodles. These are lentil noodles. And when you read the side of the box for the ingredients that's inside, the ingredients in the box, lentils. It's a wrap. Some kale, some cabbage, red cabbage, some onions, some peppers, and some spices. I love spices. I have around about 20 different spices. Many of the spices you eat are more healthy than the food you eat. That's the power of spices, So be creative. Don't live within the rules. I eat oatmeal with lentil. I make a great bread out of oatmeal, lentils, and bananas and sweet potatoes, and they make a fantastic bread. And it doesn't spike your sugar. It's not like white bread. It's great bread that you could make and eat. So there's so many different meals out there. This is not your dad's Oldsmobile. It's not your dad's veganism. The food out there is amazing. You don't have to limit yourself by having good food. Be adventurous, be exciting, don't live within the rules. When we say vegan, don't think about this guy that's walking around with kale and lettuce in his pocket. No. This is real food that you're going to enjoy eating.
Thank you, BP. And also I wanted to add, happycow.net is a website and an app that has a listing of all vegan restaurants in New York City. Happycow.net, it's a great resource to have if, let's say, you need to have an outing with friends at a restaurant. Go to a vegan restaurant. Guess what? You're going to be okay if you don't eat meat at one meal. You'll be fine. I recently hosted a dinner party, and there was no meat, no dairy, and I got some faces initially, but that's what I said. I said, you'll be fine. You're not going to eat meat in one meal. Guess what? You'll survive. You'll be okay.
Wait, can I add just one thing
Sure.
to the Happy Cow? The Happy Cow is good in Manhattan, but it's not very good in Brooklyn. It's not got a lot of things, and
Okay.
it's exactly. So when you go to a restaurant that is vegan, or one that you really like that's plant-based, that has a lot of options, that's whole food, plant-based, mark it down, contact them, and they'll put it into the database. And that's really helpful, as Rachel pointed out.
Yeah, great. Thank you for that tip. Anthony, I have a question over here. We're going to take a couple more questions, and then we're going to break for food. But again, I see a lot of hands. Please email us with your feedback. The panelists are going to be floating around this evening. Or I welcome you to come back at our event in May.
Hold on, before you do that, if you want to break for food, you can go down and get your food. Those who want to stay and ask questions, feel free. I want to get all your questions answered.
Okay.
If you want to go get your food, go down and get it. You know, but I want to answer your questions so that we can put you on a pathway. So let's do that, all right?
You got it, VP. Go ahead.
Hi, I have a question for the doctors. My name is Tia. I'm from the Natural Gourmet Institute. And my question is, with doctors, it seems like there's not a lot of nutrition training in their training. And how can a person, just an ordinary person, get information on finding a doctor who has either integrative medical training, or they can work with you when you're trying to go vegan?
Well, I could talk about the training, and you talk about how to find them, if that's all right. So, as someone who works at a big teaching center, we have a medical school with 180 enrollees. We have health-related professions, the whole works. You're absolutely right. It's simply not taught. And I saw a parallel in how do I get pediatricians not to give too many antibiotics to their kids? If I tell them not to do it, all that happens is they stop sending me their patients. So what do? I brainwash the parents. All right? You have to get other people to bring the pressure. So I think the more we advocate for ourselves and our friends and our family members and tell our doctors, you know, this is not okay to just talk about drugs and medications and surgery and more specialists. You know, this is an important thing. I think we have to educate the educators, basically, because it's not taught. And maybe programs like this, like President Adams has hosted, and I plan on discussing with our leadership at the medical school, you know, what can we do to really get this word out? Will it make a difference? I don't know. I look around the audience, we commented before, I don't see a lot of young millennials here. It's mostly all us older folks who are starting to get sick and figured we better start eating plants, you know? I don't see a lot of young folks. They're too indestructible. So we got to convince them that they're not indestructible and they need to give the right advice.
So to follow up with what he's saying, and I totally agree, when I said jokingly bring an apple and bring a plant to a doctor, I was only half kidding. Because if you put the pressure on a doctor to understand, and you put the pressure on a doctor that it's very important to do this, then they'll become more aware of it. But what's interesting is that the evidence-based medicine that we read about studies that tell you how a whole foods plant-based diet always beats out in cardiovascular disease and all these other things, how they beat out all these other diets, or how they beat out medicines, or how they work well with medicines, they're in the mainstream journals for doctors. So what I recommend people do is they take a journal article and they bring it to their doctor, or they take a New York Times article, or they take a Daily News article, or they take some kind of newspaper article, and they put it in front of the doctor and say, see, this says it can help me with my microbiome. And if they can't pronounce microbiome, well, then you're in trouble. But if you want a resource, one of the great resources is plantbaseddocs.com. And that you can find integrative doctors on. And you also want to be able to ask doctors, will they spend the time with you? And that's what you also want to find out, because doctors who see you, and there's nothing wrong with doctors who see you for a short while, but you want to be able to talk to the doctor as well, and not just be farmed out to a dietitian. And there's nothing wrong with dietitians. I'm not insulting dietitians. That's not even what I'm saying. I'm saying dietitians are great, but if it's the doctor you came to see, it takes a long time to explain how it works from a doctor's perspective.
Great, thank you. Nadia, you wanted to add a couple words?
Just very quickly, and often physicians themselves are blown away. So if you do go on a whole food plant-based diet and you've got blood work beginning and you go back 28 days later, 36 days later, and that same same physician takes your blood work, they will be blown away by the results. And they will say, what have you been doing? And then that's how the medical community starts to then say, oh my God, this does work, and people will do it, because a doctor is always convinced, oh, no one's going to stick to it. But it is tasty, and people do stick to it, and the results are incredible.
Great, thank you. Anthony in the back, go ahead.
My name's Chris. Hey, speaking of restaurants and changing habits and options, this is to the Borough President. Has there been a campaign or initiative in the past to do a certification or labeling for restaurants to award them for having even just one or a few plant-based options? And what are your thoughts on introducing something like that?
I love that. That's an excellent idea. And we should look at that, or come up with some type of seal of, we serve plant-based, or we serve healthy foods. I like that. We're going to look at that. So let's connect.
Just to answer that also, to go with that, Happy Cow doesn't let people put the restaurant on Happy Cow unless it's certified. As they look at it and they look at the menu and then they decide.
Ma'am in the back.
Hi. Good evening, everyone. For the panel, so I'm from the Northeastern Conference of Seventh-day Adventists. And I'm sitting here and I'm listening to all this information. And Mr. President, if you don't mind, we would like to utilize your space. Every year for the past 10 years, we have been training our members. Well, we're called medical missionaries. Some of us are doctors, some of us are nurses, and some of us are laymen. So after we're being done trained, we go out and we teach about the plant-based. We teach about how to reverse diseases like hypertension and all that kind of good stuff. So I'm excited. I just want to just email you up and down, and let you know. We would come right here and show you exactly what we do. I would email you our information, yeah.
Make sure we connect also.
Yes.
As well.
Yes, thank you.
And I must say, and I have spoken at many houses of worship around health. The Seventh-day Adventists are way ahead of all the other houses of worship that I've dealt with. What you are doing, now all the members don't listen to you, but you have a well thought out plan about introducing and telling people the food that they should eat. You guys are doing an amazing job. And if half of our houses of worship will follow what you're doing, half of our synagogues, half of our mosques, half of our Christian churches, if they will follow half of what you do, we will have a major impact. And they really need to follow what you're doing.
Thank you. So we'll do 1, 2, and 3. The lady who has the mic now. Number 2, the gentleman with the glasses. And number 3 in the green hat.
Okay. So, greetings. I am Terry White. I am a gerontologist, but also I run the Crown Heights CSA for the last 9 years when it actually Crown Heights was a food desert. So one of the challenges that I have, because going to pose this to the doctors on the panel. When older adults come to me for my services, the biggest part that's the most challenging, it's not the finance, it's not the legal, it's not any of that, it's the nutritional part. To get them to change, to shift, because as you said, you know, right under God is the doctors. And they, whatever the doctors tell them to do is what they do. So, you know, even at the Brooklyn-wide Council, you know, we talk about having more older people eat a healthier lifestyle so they can come off of some of these medications. And but it's challenging to get partners, even the churches, involved in that process. Because even when you go to a church function or any, you know, function for seniors, it's the table of sugar, all of the sweets, all of the orange juice, and all of the things that are absolutely unhealthy for them. So we're looking for suggestions as to how to partner to get these conversations to the older adults so that they can make the change, like your mother did. And I think it would take somebody who is older, because they kind of listen to their peers, to really talk about that, and like the older sisters in the Seventh-day Adventist Church. So I'm looking for any suggestions, especially from the doctors. Thank you.
So I have a suggestion. I think it's, if you study health economics, what you find out is that if we look at 100% of long-term health, about 10% of that comes from medical care. I mean, this has been well shown. We spend 20 cents on every dollar in the U.S. on healthcare, and what do we get for it, you know, the GDP? So 90% comes from something else. So I think a person like that, you say, if you'd like to take care of 10% of your health, then just come seeing me, do what you're doing, take a lot of drugs, have some surgery, and you know, keep your fingers crossed. If you'd like to deal with the other 90%, you got to go look in the mirror and find the solution, you know, which is basically taking care of yourself. The diet, the exercise, get rid of the bad habits. But there's no way to sugarcoat it, no pun intended. You have to, you know, really just look at them in the eye and let them know it's up to them. And I think people are receptive of that eventually. Some people will never accept it, but the ones who can, I think they appreciate the frankness.
I think just to reinforce that, I think that what I find that works best with my patients who are older, and I have patients who are 90, 95. Is that old enough? Okay. Anyway, so I have patients who are older, and I find that when they come in with friends, when they come in with family, that the network of family is really supportive. So I had a patient who is in kidney failure or close to kidney failure. And he started to do what we talked about, and in 3 months his kidneys went up by 35%. But it wasn't just because of him. He came in with his son-in-law. About 6 months later. He wouldn't do anything I said. So no matter what I did, he wouldn't do it. But when his son-in-law came, he got him, convinced his father to do something, and he convinced his wife, the son-in-law's wife, to cook for him. And that made a big difference. And now you see this difference in 3 months, and I kept banging my head. So I think it has to do with the support.
Thank you. Nadia, couple comments?
Finally, Terry, I'd be happy to connect with you because it is a difficult transition. We've worked with a number of older patients and how to make it easy, and that's one of the things. So I'd be happy to connect with you later.
Thank you. Gentlemen, right, go ahead.
You know, and one thing is great about this. The results are so fast. If my mother had to wait 7 months, 8 months to see the results, I was going to lose her. She was going to say, you know what, listen, but try 3 months. If those of you who are thinking about this, or you have a loved one in your family that's going through some terrible times, some health issue, we all know someone, because all of us got some type of ailment from this diet. Just try 3 months. Just say, listen, just give me, that's what I told my mom. I said, Mom, just give me 3 months. And after 3 months, tell me how you feel. After 3 months, your body is going to change. It is going to change. 3 months on medication is just going to give you enough time to get another prescription for the next 3 months on medication. You're not going to get off it. 3 months. The number of cases we have in here of my staff who were on meds, went on plant-based, they're off their medication. One of the byproducts is drop down some pounds, but just finding themselves off medication. So just try for 3 months.
Great. The gentleman over here in the glasses who's been patiently waiting.
Thank you all for this wonderful, wonderful meetup. BP Adams, thank you so very much, sir, for this, because this is just phenomenal. 2 years ago, I had a heart attack. I currently have 4 stents in my heart. I'm looking to do plant-based now. However, Dr. David spoke about fear. Now, of course, that fear that I had is I'm on 5 medications currently, and I want to ultimately wean myself away from that. But how will I know that I'm at a place where I can get off this medication? What will some of the litmus test or the I'm not sure how to say this. Oh, the signs, thank you. What will some of the signs be for me to know?
Right, right. No, lovely, lovely. And I'm so glad, and I want Dr. Danev to tell you the medical aspect of it, but I want you all to do something here. You are going to be the living example. We're going to document your case. You're going to see what everybody thought was impossible. You're going to see your arteries get unclogged. You're going to see, this lifetime imprisonment of drugs that they said this is the only way to go. A story that I tell often, I love, the woman came here when we opened up our lactation room. She looked at me, she said, "You look different from the pictures." I told her, yes, I went to Ohio because I was told I was diabetic. I went to Ohio to see a doctor. She said, "Dr. Esselstyn." She didn't even let me finish. She said, "Let me tell you what happened. My husband had a massive heart attack, died on the operating table, and they brought him back to life. He had tubes in his throat." He texted me and said, "Honey, find Dr. Esselstyn." He went to his cardiologist in the city. His cardiologist told him, "You're on medication for the rest of your life. Your arteries are clogged. There's nothing you can do about it. It is what it is." He said, "Well, I want to try to reverse it." He said, "It's not possible." He went to see Dr. Esselstyn, put him on his program, the same program I'm on, my mother's on. Within a year, the cardiologist is watching his numbers. He does is it the EKG? What does he do when they look at the heart? Echocardiogram. He looks at it and he sees that his arteries opened. He tells the patient, "Can you tell me the name of that doctor? I got to go in for a stent, and I don't want to go in for a stent. Can you tell me the name of the doctor?" Your doctor may tell you it's not possible. So don't argue with him. Just follow this lifestyle. Have a good doctor that can look at your medicine and tell you when to cut it, like my mom. I didn't tell her arbitrarily to cut it. I gave the numbers to the doctor. He said, "Okay, she can cut it down now." Safely transition off the drugs, and you are going to see the results of your own. I know it's hard to believe because we have been brainwashed. This is not snake oil, folks. This is not some trickery. This is real stuff. I could not see. I lost my sight. My eyes, sugar got in my eyes. I lost my sight. Permanent nerve damage in my hands and feet. They said it's not going away. Had an ulcer, sores on my esophagus. 3 months, 3 weeks, my sight came back. 3 months, my nerve damage gone. They can't even find the ulcer anymore. They can't find the sores on my esophagus anymore. If there was a pill that did this, they would be subscribing it all the way through. But since it's broccoli and kale, and nobody can make money off it, but the grocers, they don't want to do it. You're going to be our test case.
So let's make sure that we connect.
So, wait. So
Yeah,
let me
go ahead.
just take a whack at from the medical perspective. Several things. One, you talk about how you have stents, and we used to call you guys vasculopaths, but we don't anymore because that sounds like a psychiatric term, that you're some kind of pathologic something. But vasculopath means that you have atherosclerosis or plaques in your arteries throughout the 230 miles of arteries and vessels and veins that you have. So that stent is covering probably a centimeter or less. So you're not really covered by the stent anyway. Then there was a study just recently done in England. This would never have been approved in the United States, where they took one vessel stenting and they compared it to sham stenting, which means that they fed a catheter through your femoral artery up to your heart, and they didn't put a stent in some people, and they did in other people with stable angina. And they found that the stent and the placebo were equal. And so that already helps you there. Second of all, in terms of getting off the medication, there is a fear of getting off the medication, and I completely, right, 5 medication, right. No, I completely understand that. The beta blocker, the stent, what have you, and I completely understand right there. But there are, like, for instance, if you look at the statin, what the statin's effect is to lower the cholesterol, but also lower the inflammation. So you can check how you're doing with a whole foods plant-based diet by looking at inflammatory factors similar to what the statin does. And you can look at the LDL. So you can look at the high sensitivity CRP, it's called, C-reactive protein. And that will tell you how you're doing. You can look at nutrient levels and see the nutrient levels go up, and you can see an inverse relationship. You can also get a carotid Doppler, and you can get an echo and look at the vessels and see if they're blocked. And then a year later, see what happens. Because I've had patients reverse, and I've had a cardiologist who did the reversal with the ultrasound of the carotids, and at the end, the patient said, "So what do you think, doctor?" He said, "Well, you can't reverse heart disease even though it was your arteries were cleared and your inflammation went down, and I was impressed with that, but you can't, so you have to stay on your medication." Some people just don't know, and they need to learn.
Okay, so we need to make sure that you connect with him, and we'll connect also after. Anthony, the woman in the white hat. Don't worry, I see the hands. I know who I'm calling on. Yeah, I see the hands. Don't worry, I see you. Ma'am?
Right now, I have the tingling in the feet. I have the tingling in the hands. I need help, serious help. I'm also a cancer patient, so I need help.
Does anybody want to take that here, BP or Dr. Dunayev?
I see that she has, what was the first thing she had? Oh, tingling. You said tingling in your hand.
I have tingling in the legs.
Okay. And I had tingling in my hands, tingling in my feet, and I had nerve damage in my thigh. I couldn't even feel my right thigh. So my state was so, you know how men are, we wait till the last minute. You got to roll us into the hospital, So what you should get the empowering thing. I assume you're on medication now.
Yes. I'm on insulin. I take insulin every meal.
Okay.
And before I go to bed.
Okay.
I was on
Right. Now what's interesting, Mom was on insulin and several medications, and her blood sugar was still 8. Right. So my suggestion, number one, you should work in consultation with a doctor. That's important. But you should switch to a plant-based diet. That's my suggestion. You should have a conversation with Dr. Dunayev before you leave. But right. Okay.
Okay, so let's make sure you connect with Dr. Dunayev after, and you can ask him more questions. Anthony, the gentleman right here in the green hat.
First, I want to say thank you to Brooklyn Borough President Eric Adams and everybody on the staff, everybody on the panel, because I'm reminded of an African proverb when it says it takes a village. And I feel like it's town meetings like this that create that village atmosphere. I represent an organization called Hip Hop is Green. I am the NYC president and representation of Hip Hop is Green, and it's our goal to do what the doctor spoke about earlier, and that's to bring young people into this plant-based lifestyle under the framework of hip-hop. And we want to make sure that we partner with everybody on this panel, the sister in the schools, the president, the doctor, the sister who does the businesses, because I feel like once we get the youth to understand, like my son says, that it's lit to be healthy, then we start to change that paradigm. So I look forward to working with each one of you individually and collectively. I look forward to starting to plant these seeds that will create a great harvest of health and wellness. And for those who don't know, now the 10th element of hip-hop is health and wellness. And we want to work with the Borough President doing a big event here and bring in youth from Bedford-Stuyvesant, from Brownsville, from Flatbush, from East New York. And again, to let them understand just how lit it is to be healthy. So again, I thank everybody for being here. It's an honor.
Let's make sure that we connect. There's a gentleman in a red shirt that's been waiting.
Hold on, brother, I think have you connected with the office? I thought I saw a meeting request or something. Did you connect with the office?
Yeah, we spoke, I believe, right? Or you have a partner in Atlanta?
Okay, so let's set up, get this information. Let's set up a day when we can sit down and talk, you know, where you could host an event here, and let's continue, because I think you're dead on. Once we get the hip-hop community to really understand folks are dying younger and younger, their generations are getting diabetic younger and younger, dying younger and younger. And so let's do this. You're dead on, man, and I love it. Thank you so much for being here.
Let's make sure we connect. Anthony? Gentleman in the back with the red shirt.
Reverend Daughtry.
Reverend?
Yes. Thank you very much to the Borough President and to distinguished panelists. I said I wasn't going to say anything at all, but since the Borough President had mentioned houses of worship, who had been on the health vanguard, and I assume that he failed to mention the house of the Lord because he was engrossed in his delightful repast. But the Borough President was just at our church. Dr. Karen Daughtry is here, my wife, 56 years, and head of our health committee. But of course, we've been on this journey for many, many years. I happen to be vegan myself for the last 34 years. And so I just want to commend you, Borough President. You're always in the vanguard for what is good and what is right, and to all the panelists.
Thank you, Reverend.
Again, I just wanted to, it's a poor frog that doesn't praise his own pond, so I just thought that since you were talking about houses of worship, and you failed to mention the House of the Lord Church at 415 Atlantic Avenue, downtown Brooklyn, I thought I might say a word at that time.
Thank you. Thank you.
You know, the pastor says something that's really important. I am plant-based because, you know, and I say this over and over again, nothing is worse than using good energy to do the wrong things. If you consider yourself to deal with health and you go just quote-unquote vegan, and you're drinking Coca-Cola, that's vegan, eating Oreo cookies, eating, sugar. Remember, vegan is no milk or dairy products. And so when you look at some of these vegan products, you might as well just go and eat yourself a hamburger, because some of these products are just so bad. Plant-based is plant-based food. I do not eat oil. I do not eat salt. I do not eat sugar. Right. I do not, and trust me, I do not long for, if I want ice cream, I freeze bananas. I have a Yonano with strawberries and others, and I just put them through the process. If I want something crunchy, I will eat walnuts, which is a great omega-3 for you. If I want bread, I make my own bread. If I want to make something sweet, a cake or something, I know the powers of using bananas and dates, which are natural, and using those natural products. Nature gives you everything you want. So don't kid yourself. If you are saying, well, you know what, I want to walk around and say I'm a vegan, and you're drinking that Coca-Cola and you're eating that those foods that's supposed to look like a hamburger and got everything in it, you're poisoning yourself. You're poisoning yourself. I don't want you to waste your time thinking that, you know what, your body is the truth serum and it doesn't lie. It knows what you're doing. We may not know, but it knows. If you immerse yourself in this, you're not going to long for any of that processed junk anymore. Trust me. You're going to reach a path when you cross over to the other side, and the other side is unbelievable how you feel when you freed not feeling bloated and constipated and tired and lethargic, having long menstrual cycles, having headaches, waking up and can't sleep, having pains and headaches. You know, it's amazing what happens to your body when you stop eating that poison and that junk. Young sister of mine, good friend, business owner, and I've shared this before, and I love to share her story. She was getting seizures twice a week, going to close down her business and leave the city. And I said, listen, just try plant-based. She went plant-based, has not had another seizure in 6 months that she's been on plant-based. Not one seizure. It comes out in different ways. It gives me diabetes. It gives you heart disease. It gives you depression. It gives you breast cancer. It gives you colon cancer, like Ken Thompson, 50 years old, dying from colon cancer. That's food. So it's going to come out different ways. You know, it's not going to do the same thing to everyone the same way, but one thing for sure is going to destroy your body. It may be a year, it may be 2 years, you may skate for 20 years or 50 years. It's going to get you. This food is poison. That's the bottom line to it, and I think the doctor said it better. There's no sugarcoating to this. You know, I'm not even going to try to fool you and say that, you know what, just sneak and eat your steak. You know, no. This food is going to kill you one way or another if you don't change the direction. We're all going to die. I just don't want it to be my fault.
That's right. Thank you. The gentleman in the back.
President Adams, thank you so much for having the courage to have this forum. And this is remarkable. And recently, we've seen a huge uptick in vaccine injuries. Is there a vegan approach or alternative to vaccines?
When you say the vaccine that...
Vaccine injuries.
For
Children
people that
suffering
get
from
vaccine?
autism. There's a documentary out called Vaxxed, and it speaks to vaccines and the possible correlation between the high rate of autism, primarily amongst young black boys, than any other demographic.
Can I address this? Do you mind?
Please.
Okay. You know, I think it's a very good point you bring up, and it's a very good point you bring up autism. The person who did Vaxxed did a study on vaccines and measles, mumps, and rubella in England. And the study was published in The Lancet. That's like the New England Journal of Medicine, or that's like the New York Times, or it's qualified as one of the best. And it was found out that some of the data and how he did this was not done well. And it was withdrawn. And you can look it up, actually. And this man, his license was taken away. So he can no longer practice medicine. And this has frustrated me to hear that he's spreading this word. And I was very disappointed when he came out with this movie. And if you look at the literature, they're finding out more and more autism has to do with nutrition. And nutrition from not just when we're 50, not just when we're 60, but what the mother does with the child, or what the mother does when she's pregnant as the fetus. So it plays a huge role. And the idea of vaccines, and it's nice to think that they may be associated with autism, but they're not. And no research has really shown that it has. You know, you're allowed to disagree, but that's okay. But I mean, it's the same thing as, let me give you an example. Let me give you an example. Someone starts a plant-based diet and they get diarrhea for 2 or 3 months. And they blame it on the plant-based diet. And it turns out that they've been on drugs. They got drugs from Diovan for, not to pick on a drug, but Diovan from Canada for 3 months. And they had the diarrhea from the Diovan. They stopped the Diovan and the diarrhea went away. The associations we make because people come together and want to believe, the research doesn't show it. I'm not saying, there's no one who can say it does, and every time we try to repeat a research on the autism, it doesn't show an association with vaccines. And believe me, they've tried. So, and I understand as a parent, it's very hard. And I understand anyone who has autism, it's very hard. And I'm not picking on autism. I'm saying that vaccines are one of our greatest methods in medicine to prevent disease, to prevent spreads of disease. Now, the flu vaccine, for instance, doesn't reduce the risk more than 10% this year. But that 10% is at least 10% because there's such a huge epidemic right now of flu vaccine. I mean, there's such a huge epidemic of flu, I'm sorry, not the flu vaccine. But what I'm saying is that not necessarily do our vaccines bad. And we've had this movement where people have thought vaccines are bad because they were given 3 in a row, and they were given in a schedule that didn't allow it. Medicine workers, that's me included, we have to be Hep B vaccinated. We have to be Hep C vaccinated. We have to go on a schedule to do that. We have to get flu vaccines every year. We have to make sure we don't spread any disease to our patients, because we could be the ones who cause these problems by not getting some of the vaccines. I'm not saying that you have to get a flu vaccine. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, if you can find research and you can find it actually has valid data, then we have an argument, then we have a discussion. And there are studies that continue to be going on, but none of them have panned out. And go ahead.
Hold on. Wait, this, yeah. I'll repeat it for you. The question was, how do we explain when a child has gone through several years of his or her life, and then all of a sudden they get a vaccine, and then all of a sudden they start to have problems? We don't try to explain it, at least not here. We're not going to come up with the answer. The jury is still out on the complete positive and the complete negative on it. So the jury's still out, so I want to make sure we get everybody questioned in here without getting into a debate about vaccines, because I think it's a choice of a parent to make that decision on what's best for their child. I used to always get a flu shot every year. I didn't get this year. I believe my immune system is stronger and better, and I didn't catch the flu this year. People around me had the flu. So I think that if you're eating the right food, your body, immune system, and I want you to look at those 3 videos, because part of these 3 videos talk about the microbes and autism, and how they looked at the gut bacteria inside children with autism, and they're seeing a connection. They did some tests on that. But look at it. It's important for you to do your own research. It's so important. Do your own research from credible sources, because there's a whole lot of stuff on the internet. Do your own research from credible sources, come to your conclusion, and determine how you're going to ensure that your family is healthy. That's the important thing.
Ma'am, over
Not,
here.
not on vaccines, right? Okay. Okay.
One last thing. All I was saying, and I didn't mean to irritate people, is that vaxxed itself is, you know, it's based from a source that's not a good source. And so I'm saying, yes, you may think so, and I'm not arguing against it or not. I can't answer that question. I'm saying we can answer that question. And that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying...
Thank you, Dr. Dunayev. Okay. I think we're just gonna move on because we still have a couple questions. Lady in the orange, please.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. President. I thank everybody on the panel here. Everything was very interesting. I am someone with a family line of bad health, and I claim it. And I want to know.
Well, hold it closer.
Yeah. Okay. And I want to know.
Close to your
It's
mouth.
closer? Okay. I want to know if I should want to get the services from any one of the doctors here as a senior citizen. How would this be covered on the visit to your office concerning my diet, plant-based diet? Is it covered by Medicaid, Medicare, or do we have to come out of pocket?
It should be. You know, we've worked with physicians, so the short answer is it absolutely should be, and I'm hoping with policymakers, physicians, that with the results that we get, someone said it earlier, if those results came from a pill, it would be covered by insurance. I do think now that I know now that there are insurance companies looking to promote food as medicine. Yeah. When that will happen, whether it will be in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, I don't know. And we're talking about for the food side, different for the services.
So, you know, there's definitely, in medicine, we have codes that we code everything. They're called ICD codes, International Classification of Diseases. They used to be 10,000. They changed it to 90,000 a few years ago. There's no code for recommending a plant-based diet. Okay, it doesn't exist. So you're not going to get the specific advice. It falls under that umbrella, I think, of common sense and good things for your doctor to tell you. But what's so empowering about this, and I think President Adams has alluded to it, you don't need to see a doctor to do this. You can spend $16 on Amazon and get How Not to Die, and it tells you exactly what to do. All you got to do is have the willpower and the conviction to do it. It's very easy to do, and it is cheap. Yes. I mean, I have one of my kids, he'll sit down, he'll eat a baked potato, some brown rice, and some chickpeas, and that's dinner. I mean, it probably cost $1.50, and that is healthier than anything you could buy. So that's what I think is so empowering about it. You can do it on your own.
But I don't, if I just say, I don't think it is super easy initially because there's an addiction to sugar and refined grains, and it is overwhelming. So I do think there needs to be some hand-holding, some coaching, and an introduction of what is plant-based protein, because if we're equating, if someone says, well, okay, I'm going to go plant-based, and that means just eating salad leaves, you're not going to get enough plant-based protein, you're going to be hungry, and you're going to fall off the wagon. So there is a need for a service, for hand-holding, some guidance on the food, and that should be on prescription.
Now, what's important, because this is very important with the advice you got from both. That's why the beauty is, if you were asking me this 50 years ago, I would say, you know what, it's tough. But there's so much out there now. There's this whole universe, you know, what many of you should do as a take-home assignment is just Google vegan recipes, oil-free cooking. Just Google, go on the YouTubes and see how people are so excited about sharing the information. 1. 2, as you do this, you go to your regular doctor and tell that doctor, listen, I'm going to try plant-based to address my health needs. Don't tell him to reverse because he's not going to believe you. You don't want to scare him. You know, let him look at the facts so that he can monitor your drugs. Because if you go plant-based, and you drop your blood pressure and no longer need that blood pressure medicine, you can't keep taking it. If you plant-based and you drop your sugar, you can't keep taking, you'll be hypoglycemic if you keep taking insulin and you drop in your sugar. You know, so it's important to let the doctor know that, listen, I'm going to, because when you go to the doctor, they tell you to eat more fruits and vegetables anyway. So say, listen, I'm going to take your advice, and I'm going to start eating more fruits and vegetables. But you have to have a balanced meal. It's not about just eating lettuce and tomatoes, no. You got to eat those lentils, those beans, because you want to get your protein. You know, get your protein, a nice balanced meal. That's why it's important to read Dr. Greger's book, How Not to Die. Read Dr. Esselstyn's book on how to prevent and reverse heart disease. They have food in there to show you. You got to get, you know, you want a balanced meal because it's not about being hungry. I'm never hungry. If you're hungry, you're going to fall off. You're not going to stick with your diet. But let your doctor know what you're doing because they have to monitor the medicine that you're taking as you start to drop that medicine.
There's a great website called By Any Greens Necessary. Check that one. By Any Greens Necessary.
Ma'am, over here.
Yes. My name is Fumilayo. I'm director of Fusha Dance Company, and I teach dance around the city for over 30 years. And I've been a vegetarian for over 45. And basically what I wanted to say, I want to thank you so much for doing this. I'm about to do a workshop March 31st. It's called Cook to Live. And basically what happens with the body is that when you start eating correctly, the cells change, the cells renew. The cells renew every 7 years, all your cells become new. So at the age of 31 or the age of 21, your cells are 3 years old. So basically anything that you do in reference to changing the cycle will rebuild your cells. The reason why people are starving is because the cells are starving. Once your cells are balanced, then you no longer will crave sweets. So this workshop will teach us how to cook, how to do everything that we're talking about right now. It's at March 31st. It's, please go online and check it out. It's called Cook to Live. And I teach African dance. I teach at Geneva many years ago, Alvin Ailey, Leslie Dance and Skate, and I know you. So I'd love to be part of this panel at some point.
Where's the
The workshop in 181 St. John's Place between 7th and 8th. It's March 31st. It's from 3 to 5:30. It's an interactive workshop. So basically, we're talking about the cycle, you know, like my parents right now, my mom has Alzheimer's and she has Parkinson's. And actually, it can be alleviated by her just doing enemas, but she refuses to do it. And so basically, because the thought is when you're foggy up here, you need to clean out down here. So your colon has to clean out, then your head starts to get clearer. So there's a lot of information, and I really, really appreciate you doing this.
How much is
The workshop is $65 before March 16th, $75 after, $85 at the door. But you know, people need to go there, like, because literally it's gonna get.
Can you send us a flyer or something so we can tweet
I
it out?
can. Who do I send it to?
Coordinate with Natalia. Okay?
Absolutely.
Well, we can talk right after.
Yes, thank you.
We had a hand up over here. Oh, actually, the young gentleman in the back. He might be the youngest person in the room.
Hi. Hi. This is a great event, by the way. And with great events like this and so many initiatives out
Closer,
there.
closer.
Oh, okay. This is a great event, by the way. And with so many initiatives like this, why do you think we aren't seeing much change with diet-related health issues in our communities?
I'm sorry, hold it close without
Oops,
moving.
okay, I'll be safe. Why do you think we aren't seeing much change with, okay, I'll just restart, okay. With so many initiatives like this, why do you think we aren't seeing much change with diet-related health issues in our communities?
I believe the question was, with so many events like this, why aren't we seeing much change with health? I think a couple of reasons. One, cultural habits are really hard to break. The the slave master placed in our culture this bad food. Our ancestors on the plantation had to eat this food to survive. They would be ashamed to know that we're still eating this food, although we're free. The slave master said, you are only going to eat the pig guts. You're only going to eat the feet and all of this bad food. This is all we're giving you. And when that's planted into your culture, every time grandma handed down that recipe on that macaroni and cheese and chitlins and all of that stuff, she handed down the rich hatred of the slave master, and it's embedded in us. And now it's time for us to break free of the shackles, not only physically, but emotionally and spiritually. That's what it's, and so the goal is, it is hard. If you ever want to lose your friend, tell them they got to stop eating that ham. I've never seen people get more emotional than telling them they can't eat the food that's poisoning them. So it's very hard. And it's going to take young men like you to say, you know what? You're not serving this in our schools anymore. You know that? You want me to be part of your youth ministry in the church? Then on Sundays when we have these banquets, you're not going to have this poison in here. Because don't talk about healing souls when we're not healing our body. It's going to talk about you to do spoken words competition and talk about it. It's going to talk about rap records of connecting, you know, why we're eating, what we're eating, and how it's destroying us. It's going to talk about, you know, music and singing about, you know, how diabetes is killing our family. #1 cause of blindness, #1 cause of limb amputation, #1 cause of heart disease. You know, that's what it's going to take. Because folks are so wrapped up in love with this poison. And there's no better way to destroy a people than to have them embrace the things that's going to destroy them and feel as though if they don't have it, they're not going to live. This is a drug. A drug is taking something that's harmful of your body, but you can't stop taking it. That is what this food that we're eating. It's a drug. We are addicted. And you got to help us. You know, the mere fact you are here today give me hope. You know that you are going to turn this around, and that's what we're looking forward to. So it's going to be hard, but we're going to do it one person at a time, because if Mother can do it at 79, then everyone can do it.
Thank you, BP. Jonathan, you want to add a couple words?
Just to add on to that point, I mean, we're also just culturally in the 21st century, we've now become a society of the immediate, of the now, of the fast, of the instant gratification, of the I don't have the attention span to cook a cup of rice for 10 minutes. I need to have it yesterday and throw it in the microwave. So there's something, there's a fast food culture, and we think about it, we think of McDonald's, we think of Burger King, we think of things like that, but fast food's in everything, right? What's that lean cuisine in your freezer? Not to make any brand references, but what's how fast you can go and get something made for you versus slow food culture, which is the slow food culture is like you're taking the time to cook, you're taking the time to think about the ingredients you're going to make, you're taking the time to, I mean, honestly, put the phone down, right? Close the laptop. Think about culturally what we need to do to kind of slow ourselves down a little bit, and that can go a long way, because part and parcel with the poison that the borough president's talking about is this culture that we now live in, right? We're 120 miles an hour, we're never stopping, and that's where we're going. And it feeds itself in this really, really powerful way. So it will take hold, but it takes hold when people actually take a moment to self-reflect and to kind of understand kind of how they're living as a society as well. So think about slow food, not fast food, and it'll start helping make some change too.
Can I ask you a quick question? How old are you? 17? You know, I have patients that range all the way from like 15 up to 95. And the most difficult patients I have of keeping my patients doing what they want to do is the younger folks. And we need people like you to instill that idea that you are what you eat. And I have so much trouble because parents can't do it. It really comes from their peers, and their peers have much more power than their parents. and they're the ones who direct them. So if you want to do this, taking an active role is a great idea, and asking questions into your community and your peers of why you're not doing this and why we're not thinking about this is more powerful than any of us can do.
Can I say something? My young sons, who are now 19 and 21, have influenced more people in their lives, in their peers, to go plant-based than I have, which is sad for me, but it's good for them.
Thank you. Anthony, we have a lady with the hat and the green. Ma'am?
Good evening. Good evening. My question is this. You spoke about culture, and our culture, as you said, we're addicted to a certain style of eating. What I would like to know from Brooklyn Borough President Eric Adams is, along with this fabulous new way of eating, are you going to have in this beautiful place an exercise room? Because I just want to say something. For me, I have a passion for working out because I was overweight. I mean, it wasn't pretty. At 5'2", I was in my early 20s overeating sweets until somebody, a colleague said, you need to go to the doctor. He'll put you on a diet, which he did, but he did give me diet pills. It didn't make me sick. He checked my vital signs. And I decided to go to the Y and then Elaine Powers. And I still work out because I don't want to go back to that.
Got you.
So my thing is this. I try to encourage seniors when I speak to them, not because I'm trying to be nosy, but I recognize that eating well is not enough. So I try to encourage those that can work out to work out. And they look at me like, what is she talking about? So I would like to know if you would take the initiative, Brooklyn Borough President Eric Adams, to have a gym in this place for the public. I'm not being funny, because...
I got you, Mother. I got you, Mother.
So my point is, when I come back next month, I hope you have a very up-to-date gym, because this diet is wonderful, but we need the equipment and to work out. And this will look good on you because you know we need both.
Let me respond to that. And we gotta. For those who have questions, you have to shoot your question because we gotta wrap up. DCAS is gonna toss us out. But to respond to your question directly, there is a gym in here. The steps. You know, the lobby. You know, and I'm saying it it's funny, but it's not in actuality. The problem that we have put in our brain is that exercise must be in this fancy environment. The mere fact you stand up at your desk instead of sitting down is the new tobacco. If you take the train, get off a stop before your station and walk the rest of the way. Take the steps. You know, there's steps here. I walk up and down the steps in this building to get my exercise. While I type, I stand on my Stairmaster and I type. While I'm on the phone, I have my stationary bike in my office. Getting up and walk around. Don't let anybody give you an excuse that, well, I don't have a gym membership fee. Hey, listen, you can walk up and down steps and get more exercise. A speed walk gives you more quality exercise than you could ever imagine. Move. That's what the body needs. We're too stationary. But the number one thing that's going to impact your health the most is what you put in your mouth.
As far as also one other quick thing, just as far as exercise goes, there was a study done with seniors, and it showed that those who stood up every 15 minutes to a half hour had less heart disease than those who didn't stand up. Just stand up.
Okay, over here we have a question. You know what? I think, VP, I think we're going to wrap this up this evening. VP, we're gonna take a few more questions? Okay, we're gonna take a couple more questions over here. Go ahead, shoot your question.
Well, honestly, I just
Hold it
want
close.
to, first of all, I want to be able to thank you all, and Honorable Borough President, thank you for allowing these forums to go on, these informative educational forums. As we keep continuing here is that there's a lot of research, and we know the benefits of a whole plant-based diet, and we know that there's a lot of resources out there. But as a community nutritionist that's been working in the New York City area for the last 15 years, this is new to us. This is where you're ahead of the curve with this. And the resources, the materials, the educational materials are not quite there yet. We often know that policies always lag behind the research and the evidence. Now, my question is, what is the Borough President doing to be able to instill this information into develop curriculums, develop educational materials or RFPs for those organizations and those individuals that are working in the community and are in favor and know the benefits of a plant-based diet?
And we are, and that's a great question. Just, short answer, we're pushing to change the education and what's being taught, but it's also imperative that the nutritionists like yourself get the information, because it's not like you're going against any rule or education, because every doctor would tell you eat more fruits and vegetables. But it doesn't hurt as a nutritionist to tell people to cut the things out of their meals that are harmful to them. So what I would encourage you to do is get some of these great books, and a great website all of you should look at is nutritionalfacts.org. If you text me, I'm going to send you this information also. It's a great website that you should look at. But that's what I think we should do, okay? And we should connect with Natalia, yes, and we would like to partner with you. Next one, we a quick question so we can wrap up.
Okay, right here in the blue, I think this might be, because like DP said, the building does close.
Yes. Okay, quickly, just someone mentioned about gas. I know for me it helps to eat sprouted grains and sprouted beans and sprouted nuts, so I think that helps with the gas for me, and it doesn't smell. And also, I wanted to ask a question about genetically modified vegetables and foods. What are your thoughts about where the state of that is, and do you think we have enough information about that, or should we be really concerned about the impact of the genetically modified foods on our bodies?
That's a good question. GMO, you see on the package GMO. I try to stay away from GMO because I don't think enough has been there to let us know if it's harmful enough. I'm like Dr. Duneyev. I like to look and pour through the research because the research is there, and the research is very user-friendly on this stuff.